So one of the things that you've been saying lately is that over the last year, one of the major white pills that you've observed, that you've inhaled, has been the openness of conservatives to anarchist ideas, right? Or
Yes.
something like that. And so why should conservatives be in favor of anarchy? Is it not a left-wing revolutionary idea?
I don't think I'm not in a position to tell conservatives what they should and shouldn't do. I think if you are and conservatives are people I do not really have much hope for, because much of conservatism in America specifically, it might be different in Britain and overseas. So I do want to make that clear. In America specifically, much of contemporary conservatism, at least for the last 60 years, has been exclusively a reaction to whatever the leftist BS of the moment is. So although they claim to have some dubious principles like minimal government, balanced budgets, law and order, these are not really used in a coherent context. So a conservative is someone who would tell you right now that they're fiscally conservative because we need to return to Obama's budgets. I mean, so the left, I talk about this, and then you're right, the left will posit let's suppose the current budget's 1 trillion, and the left says we need to make it 2 trillion. And the conservatives say 1.5 trillion. I'm fiscally conservative. And the left's like, oh, great. You got me. And this is that ratchet effect, which is why conservatives have been losing for decades, with some very, very important and notable exceptions, some which I'll be talking about in my next book, which is called The White Pill. But in terms of conservatives and the police, the argument has always been, and it is a very reasonable argument, which has a lot of basis to it, that the police are that thin blue line that keeps us from descending into a Hobbesian dystopia. And that is theoretically a very coherent concept. But what we saw in 2020 is that the police have, in America at least, but in Europe, it's even worse, from my understanding. Like Belgium, you saw the footage. The police are far more interested in being obedient and enforcing the law of the state than they are in defending property and helping people protect themselves. In Canada, just this last week or two, Ezra Levant, who I'm sure your audience is familiar with, had a tweet about they were tearing down some statue in a park in Canada, and the only person who was arrested was the one who was protesting tearing down the statue, and that person got tased. So thanks to social media, conservatives, liberals, green, whatever you want to be, have a far better understanding of how things work in reality, as opposed to previous eras when we had to receive our data filtered through the lens of the corporate press, in which case it will always be used to further the corporate agenda, and it'll be edited very heavily and to create a kind of emotional response in the viewer. Now, when you have direct data and no one's saying anything, people can make those judgments for themselves. And they're realizing, to a degree which I would have thought was impossible, to what extent their idea of the police is completely removed from how the police act in practice, because partly conservatives tend to be law-abiding, play by the rules folks. Their interactions with the police are going to be universally positive, if not pleasant and beneficial. So it's very hard for them to understand that other people who might be innocent and not doing anything would have nefarious interactions, or they would say, okay, well, in those cases, there are just a few things that could be statistically dismissed. Now that they're realizing that this is universally the norm, I can't believe it, honestly. I thought I'd be fighting this for 20 years, a huge reaction in the other direction, and knowing that the blue line are the ones who are defending, for example, every gun confiscation law, and they would do it without a moment's hesitation.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.